Our staff, of course, also all have iPads as well as MacBooks. So does our administration, and all of our board members have iPads as well. So it's pervasive through the school. The teachers and administrators are super active on Twitter. That's why school council set up a Twitter account about a year ago, actually. And they often will have Twitter meetups. They're always posting about some of the research projects that they're doing, activities in the classroom, pictures of kids doing science work, etc. And it's really interesting to subscribe to their Twitter feeds too, because it really plugs you in more closely to what's going on at the school. One of the things is this Connect blog, which is attached to our website, and a lot of the research projects as well as examples of inquiry-based projects are there. And I believe that website is getting, do you know how many hits a month?
Thousands.
It's huge.
Yeah. It's used a lot by other educators who come to the site because inquiry is the methodology being used, that it gives them sparks a lot of ideas. So other educators go to the site, they can watch videos, they hook up with other teachers, not hook up, but hook up through Twitter or whatever. And once they become kind of buddies, there's this really great collaboration that goes on in the teaching community because of that. So there's literally hundreds of videos and projects that are put up on this site, on this Connect blog, on a regular basis, so it's constantly being refreshed.
Yeah. And that includes rubrics and what the inquiry questions might have been and things like that, student videos, all kinds of things. Some of the teachers also have their own blogs, and one thing I do want to mention is that our school board funds out of the annual operating budget a dedicated position called a professional development and outreach coordinator, and that individual helps to curate the blog and does a lot of outreach to share some of our methodologies with other schools. I mean, in a typical week, there are kids there from U of C, Mount Royal, wherever. People from Africa come to the school to see what we're doing. It's pretty commonplace to have visitors in the school looking at the teacher's practice. I think that's good on that one now. So school council, you guys mostly are involved in school council, so you'll know a lot of this. Beyond our mandated role, we're not a community school. We have kids bused from everywhere in the city. 75% of our kids are bused. A large portion of the non-bused kids are dropped off by their parents. So there's not a natural gathering of parents outside the school doors. So a big role for our school council is to foster a sense of community, to increase the level of parent engagement, and thereby increase the engagement of our learners. We also, about 3 or 4 years ago, working in conjunction with one of the administrators, really stepped up our involvement in parent volunteering. Up until that point, I would say parent volunteering was almost limited to accompanying the overnight camping trips that all of our students take part in twice a year. And 4 years ago, we instituted the Parent Volunteer Committee, and they now recruit parents to be involved in all kinds of performance and visual arts, classroom activities, in-class activities, come in as phys ed guest instructors and things like that. And as a result, last year we had 71% of parents, one parent at least from the family, volunteered at the school that year, which we were really happy with. So how does our school council communicate with our parents in order to try to build that sense of community? We contribute to our monthly school newsletter. Most of you probably have one. Ours is distributed digitally via email, and it comes in 2 ways. One is with an embedded PDF. The second is with a link to where you can find it on the school website. And that method of distribution was established based on our most recent survey of parents. Some prefer to get it by PDF, some prefer to go to the website and look for it themselves. We do have automated text messaging out for parents who choose to get it whenever there's a delay on any of our bus routes. We have a great situation where every year all families either register or re-register online. Rob actually built that tool. And as part of the re-registration process, parents give permission to the school to allow school council to have access to all parent email addresses. So we're able to send out our meeting notices and our supporting materials for all of our monthly meetings via email. We do coordinate that through the school office so that it is less work for us, but it's really nice to have the access to the full parent email list that way. Of course, we have some content on the school website. Do any of you guys have your own school council websites? You do?
Yeah.
And is there somebody on the school council that is dedicated to maintaining that?
Me.
You. Okay. We also have, and I was interested to hear your comment about school council email addresses, because the school has set up school council at calgaryscienceSchool.com. So we can just maintain that from year to year, and we just change who those messages get forwarded to as the executive turns over. So that's quite convenient. We do an annual parent survey. It goes out via email. It's hosted on SurveyMonkey. It's been quite a valuable tool to us. The original impetus, well, there's a whole separate slide on the survey, isn't there?
I don't remember.
I think so.
Okay. I will read it.
So maybe I won't get into that too much, but I'll talk about that a little bit more. Of course, we have our Twitter handle, which is why Verena got in contact with me in the first place, and again, I'll talk about that. And then non-digital, we have a bulletin board outside the school office, and of course, the school council meetings like everyone else does. So our survey, we send this out to every family registered at the school in the spring of each year. And the questions run everything from what events school council has hosted in the past you want us to keep offering, to things like, okay, we ran an iPad pilot project for grade 7s this year. If you're a parent in grade 7, what did you think about it? Is that the right age level? Did it work well? What problems did you have with it? Would you recommend the school continues to use iPads at the grade 7 level? And based on the survey results, guess what? The iPads are now being used at the grade 4 and 5 level. So we're really fortunate that we have one of our assistant principals on the parent committee that strikes the questions, and administration is totally open to the feedback that we collect through that survey. The whole reason the survey came into being 4 years ago is we had never had to do much fundraising at all. And then we had to replace our playground equipment. And the lady who headed up the fundraising for that really wanted to get in the queue to do a casino. And our board said, unless you can show us that the majority of parents are in favor of casino-based fundraising, you can't proceed. So that was the first question that ended up forming the body of the first year's survey questions. And that year we had 67% of parents saying yes, we support casino-based fundraising. It's interesting that this year, which is only the second time we asked the question, we have 80% of parents saying yes, we support casino-based fundraising. A couple other key things we have, I'm sure most of you guys do too, the vast majority of parents prefer to hear from school council via email rather than any other methodology. We also use the survey to gather some information that goes into our annual education results report around parents' familiarity with the AC initiative underway, what our charter says, stuff like that. Any questions about that survey?
One of the reasons that we love doing this survey, it's quite an extensive survey, and we offer prizes and make it really groovy and exciting to be part of. One of the reasons that we like it is it allows our parent council to be very informed of the entire parent community, not just the people sitting at the table. Because often it's the same people sitting at the table, we have the same ideas. So by doing this, all of our information is data driven, so we know we're speaking with a common parent voice rather than just Rob Peg feels really strongly about this.
Did you have a question? No? Okay. Okay, so the whole reason you guys came probably, what are we doing with social media? Nothing formal, sorry to disappoint you. About a year ago, I set up a Twitter account just because so many people at the school are using it. And I didn't really do anything to promote our presence on Twitter. I wanted to tweet some content so that if people went to check us out, they would say, oh yeah, there's some value to subscribing to the school council's Twitter feed. So I've done it all so far. We just elected our new executive in October, and they'll be taking it over from me as time goes by. But I tweet stuff like, you know, there's a Friday off coming up next week. If you haven't lined up childcare, maybe now's the time to do it. Did you know that with the 100th anniversary of Calvary Rec, there's free swimming at the Calvary pools this month, or whatever? I did live tweet one presentation earlier this year. We had a presentation on bullying at our school council meeting, and it was in February. You never know what the roads are going to be like, so I planned in advance that if the roads were really lousy, kind of like they are tonight, that we'd be able to reach a broader audience. And I don't know what kind of audience we did have, but I tweeted throughout that presentation, I think maybe 2 or 3 dozen tweets that evening just to share that content. So, we only have about 80 followers, and we have 600 families at our school. So you could say we haven't really done very well, but we're reaching 5% of our parent population that maybe otherwise wouldn't be plugged into school council. So I'm going to leave it to the incoming school council to decide if they want to carry on just with Twitter, or drop Twitter and switch to Facebook, or whatever. And my advice to them will be to actually have a conversation at least a school council meeting, maybe even throw into the next survey what social media are parents using that they would most prefer school council to have a presence on. And I think I alluded to this earlier. For me personally, the biggest unexpected benefit of being on there and subscribing to our teachers' Twitter feeds and our administration's Twitter feeds is I have a much higher awareness of the research projects and other activities that are going on in the school. So even though I have spent some time on it, I think I've got enough value back out of it that it's been worthwhile for me to do. And I think I covered all that. Except that we do want to find a way for parents to remotely attend school council meetings. Do any of you guys do that? Like have a live stream or web meetings or anything like that? I am aware of one school in the States that's been doing it for about a year, and I think they've changed web hosts at least 3 times since they started doing it. If any of you want to check it out, it's KNAPP, K-N-A-P-P, Elementary School in Pennsylvania. And I'd love to hear if any of you come across Alberta examples where parents can attend remotely, because we'd really like to try it this year.
Here's some stats for you though. These are fairly recent. They're from Ipsos Reid and a couple other smaller stats that I pulled from some other spots. But right now, most kids own or share a computer. 83% of them have access to a computer on a regular basis. All right.
Is this in Alberta?
This is Canada. And they can access it. About 83% is from anywhere. So that means that they can get. They're considering that they have access whether they're at school or whether they're at home. They see them as the same. 75% of them have gaming consoles, 67 mobile phones, and 12% tablets. So we have kids who have pretty good connection with digital mediums. 24% spend an average of 3 hours a day online. All right, so that's not a massive number. It's about a quarter of the kids at 3 hours. All right, that's just when you look at all kind of 2.5 online or 2.9 online and then offline an additional 3.4 hours. So that number adds up quite quickly once you consider those offline hours. So that's your gaming consoles that aren't connected to networks, or you know, they're playing a game on the computer or whatever. So there's additional screen time. The things that they do most teenagers are doing right now online is YouTube. So 79% of them spend their time on YouTube, which doesn't surprise me. It's a pretty easy medium. How many of you spend time on YouTube? I do, because it's pretty entertaining, right? It's also a great way to drain some hours away, though. Social networks, 48%. Interestingly, young females are more interested in Facebook and social networking that way, whereas young males tend to be more instant messaging and chat kind of guys, right? So there's a little bit of a difference between males and females. And music sites, of course, music being big for teenagers, 61% of them spend time on music sites. When they communicate, texting, 54% of them text with each other. If any of you have teenagers, you know that you don't actually call your kid anymore, you text your kid. They do that to me. I don't even go into people's houses to pick them up anymore. I just drive up, and I'm sitting out in the car, and they put on their stuff, well, what little stuff they wear, and then come out to the car. Social networking, 48%. So 52% of them also stream TV, and 46% stream movies on their devices as well. So they're doing quite a lot of stuff on their devices every week. So if you're looking for resources as a parent, I would really highly recommend spending some time at commonsensemedia.org. I'll just show you the site here quickly. Oh, maybe I don't have it set up as a link, I don't. So anyways, commonsensemedia.org, it's got great resources there, not only for parents, but there's also resources there for students, and there's resources there for educators as well. If you have not had some sort of a meeting at your school in the evening to talk about digital media and social networking, I would highly suggest you get your school technologist and your administration to help you organize one. So that leads us to some issues. First of all, security, and kind of what are we doing to make sure our kids are being safe online. And the first, I would say, would be to establish clear household rules with your children on what you expect from them in the way of using your network, which you fund, and the computer which you buy. So, you know, being very clear on what is acceptable and unacceptable use. Again, the Common Sense Media has a great resource there, including even a contract that you can sign with your kids saying this is how we will acceptably use our network and not use our network here. And by signing that, here are the privileges that I get on the network. So just like they do at school when they have to sign an acceptable use agreement. Monitor your network. There are tools out there that are free and easy to put on your network to see what's going on your network. You are responsible for your home network. So whether you know how to do it or not, spend a little bit of time. It's not that hard. Most of them are point and click functionality now. You can see, oh, you know, look, dirtygirls.com came up 3 times yesterday. I should probably talk to Johnny about, you know, how the sex ed is going at school or whatever, right? And in my house, we keep it public. So our network is always public. So when you work in public spaces so that we're watching what each other is doing all the time. Me from a modeling perspective, them from the perspective that I kind of peek over the shoulder and see what they're doing at any given time. It's mostly Facebook and YouTube. But I can kind of keep track of what's going on. And a couple times I've seen some comments going on Facebook that's allowed me to bring it to administration and say, there's some, because all the kids have computers, there's some stuff going on. You know, I think that we should probably pull these kids in and have a chat about what's going on, because it looks like a little bit of bullying or whatever going on from my perspective as an outsider looking at it. From a health sense, you saw the stats earlier, that adds up to about 18 hours a week online and almost 16 hours of TV. So our screen time is becoming massive. Also considering when you take that same child, you drop them into an environment where they're on a one-to-one school, and now they're in front of a screen a good chunk of the school day on top of those hours, right? So they're really adding up the hours in front of the screen. And then there's been a lot of this in the news lately around kind of emotionally what's going on with social media and the internet, with bullying, body image, social acceptance. And again, by having your kids talk to you and asking them intelligent questions around the table, a lot of that stuff can be headed off. And I do believe it's one of those places where the educators and the parents need to be working together, because we're all working with those kids. 95% of Canadians under 55 years old have internet access. Social networking, you wouldn't believe this number, but 86% in the 18 to 34, I would believe that. But the incredible part is 62% in the 35 to 54. So if you're not on Facebook yet, get on Facebook. When my kids got their Facebook account, my first rule was, I'm your first friend. Because I want to see what's going on, and I get to see everything on their Facebook. I constantly hop onto their computer with them and check to see what their security settings are, just to make sure that they're sharing and doing the right stuff online. Just like when you teach kids to walk across a road, you don't just throw them out there and hope they're going to make it, right? You hold their hand and you walk them across the road. Text, 88% of mobile owners text right now, so there is an increasing need for, as a parent council, there might be some places where you could be considering text as a means, because kids, they don't really pay attention to text much because they do it so much, but adults, we found it really effective. For instance, we were talking about the bus delay notification system. When buses are late, they get a message right away, and it triggers everything so that they're aware that their child's going to be late or standing at a bus stop. 95% of online users look at email at least twice a day. So at the very least, you should be emailing out your parent council what your parent council is doing, because it will be looked at, right? We're not in the same kind of junk mail situation we were 3 years ago. A lot of that's been cleaned up, so most people look at most of their mail. They may not read it all, but they at least see that it comes in, and then they can choose to read it or not.
And I think my perspectives have been influenced by my life experiences, and I worked for 18 years as a teacher and as a school administrator, took a sabbatical and went to Stanford University, and then ended up spending almost 5 years in the technology sector in California, working in Silicon Valley. And one of the takeaways that I had from that experience was understanding how organizations that really end up accomplishing things in a consistent manner tend to understand what elements exist within what I would term a success formula. And I think it's really important for school councils to work to articulate what are the elements that contribute to success month after month, year after year. How is it that you can bring about results that enhance the learning opportunities consistently for students? Because when things work well, that's what happens. When we fall into those situations where we're not centered on the things that contribute to success, we often have school councils detracting or taking away from sometimes what it is that we're seeking with student success. Social media and an effective and comprehensive communication strategy is likely one piece of that success formula. So I bring this forward really to try to create a reason to look at social media as a means to expand and extend your reach, expand and extend the impact that you have, and expand and extend your ability to be able to tap into the full potential that your school community has. And for our work, we see there being two drivers fundamentally to our work, and this may or may not apply to a school council, but this is how we've sort of work through the process of understanding what our success formula is. Communication is the key, or certainly one of the critical keys to school council success. And every school council today should be giving thought to how do we best communicate. And we heard some great examples from Denise and Rob about how it is that in their particular context that reaching out is happening now. As a director, I'm in constant contact with schools and out in schools, and as Denise mentioned, there is a growing interest in finding ways to have technologically mediated participation in meetings. So we have schools right now that are using Blackboard Collaborate, which is simply just a protected, secure environment that allows people to participate. And just coincidentally, I had the principal of an elementary school today ask if we can provide support for the school to have that happen in their particular school, so that they can find ways to encourage and support participation when people aren't able to physically make the meeting. Now, there is something that's really important to remember, and that's that you have to have compelling reasons for people to be physically present, because there really is value from having people like you come together and build off the energy that exists in a room. And you can try to do that in a virtual setting, but it's not always as easy. And I want to warn you, and I haven't truthfully participated in a virtual school council meeting, but I have used Blackboard Collaborate a lot for distributed learning. And it takes practice, and it takes persistence, and it's not going to be perfect the first time. So if you decide to move in that kind of a direction with your school council meetings, prepare everybody for reality. Like, say, we're going to try this, it's an experiment, no one should expect perfection, things may not work, and that way I think you'll find that people are a little bit more tolerant of things not working out the very first time. What I've distributed is a copy of a recent policy that's been approved and in place in our system. And I'm not going to go through it. I think there are enough copies for everybody. If you didn't get one, let me know, and I'll happily send you one electronically. I could only bring 30. But this sets a context. And Rob and Denise touched upon the elements of digital citizenship. And we live in an era where our entire lives are connected. Whether we talk about our financial lives, whether we talk about our social interactions, whether we talk about the way we develop communications at work and deliver communications, we exist 24/7 in a connected world. Understanding how the principles of being a good citizen, being a contributing citizen within the physical world need to be also focused on within that digital context. It's critical that our students and the adults in their lives share an understanding of what it is that makes you a good citizen in that digital context. And this policy is actually an enabling policy, not something that's restrictive, but rather it's an enabling policy, and it's built upon those principles of becoming an active participant within the digital context and understanding where the boundaries are that separate what is constructive and productive and what it is that's dangerous or illegal or inappropriate. 3 years ago, when I stepped into the role that I'm in now, we had a very restricted practice around the use of things like social media or Web 2.0 tools. And in the last 2 years in particular, we have created opportunities for our educators, especially those ones that want to push the envelope and want to create new images of what teaching and learning should look like in a digital and connected world. And we've enabled them to go forward. Haven't done it ideally. We haven't got to the point where we want to. There's still a lot there's still a ton of work for us to do, but we're making some real progress. Our interests are really to do what we can to ensure that we are honoring the intention of education, which is, as I mentioned, to have students that are engaged in their learning in meaningful ways, and for that learning to be relevant to them in a way that's personal. We want their world at school to be very similar to what their world is outside of school. And Rob ran through a bunch of statistics which were absolutely important for all of us to understand. I was in one of our high schools a couple of weeks ago and had an opportunity just to ask a group of kids, how many of them had smartphones, and virtually every single hand went up. So, what's interesting is we can have filters and we can have all of the technological barriers that separate our students from the hazards of the internet, because there are, as we all know, some substantial hazards. But it's actually not going to stop them if they have the will and desire, because you know what, if you have a smartphone, you've got unfiltered access to anything that's on the internet. And almost all smartphones now can be tethered wirelessly to another device, so you can actually get your little group together of 5 kids and create your own little network and have a wireless hotspot. So that emphasis on digital citizenship is critical. Now, why have I emphasized that so much? It's because as school councils looking at social media, and I'm going to guess that most people here are at least going to play a role with their particular school council in initiating a conversation about the use of social media and what does it mean for a school council and what's required for us to extract the benefit. As those early conversations start, or maybe that you're already well along, like some schools are, in the use of social media, it is critical that what you do mirror what it is that we're trying to instill in our young people, with having a strong understanding of what it means to be an ethical citizen in the digital context. Probably so Facebook was mentioned and Twitter, and I was glad, I think Denise, you mentioned Rob, many of the users, there's a disproportionate number of female users of Facebook. Lots of, almost, if you talk to a group of kids, almost all of them use Facebook in one way or another. Most kids that are becoming really tech savvy usually have at least a couple of Facebook accounts. They've cued into this whole notion of what I do stays with me. So many of them have outstanding school-facing, parent-facing, potential employer-facing Facebook profiles, and then they've got another one that may not have that same level of content. But it is a reality. What we have found from our experience is that Facebook as a social media, and it's not used extensively in our schools. Many high schools leverage Facebook, and they have made accommodations for that media within the context of their schools' digital citizenship strategy. So all of our schools, in order to have students access the wireless infrastructure, have to have a digital citizenship strategy. And it's mostly high schools that look at social media, although certainly junior high, middle schools, and even some elementary schools leverage that platform as well. Facebook's great for saying what's happened. And as school councils, if you do decide to use Facebook, it's great for talking about what has happened. It's not as great for what's going to happen. Twitter is a lot better for talking about what's happening right now or what it is that's going to happen. And interestingly, our observations are that Twitter tends to be more males, and more of our male students tend to be on Twitter more, and more female students tend to use Facebook, although, as I said, there's broad-based use on both accounts. Twitter, if you're not familiar, is microblogging, which means that you can make a post of 140 characters, and that can be content, it can be a link, But it's just a short snippet of information, and it's great for getting something out that's very specific. And I think we have got to the point, and those of you that are like me and receive about 200 emails a day know that you appreciate brevity. Well, that's one great thing about Twitter. It's a short little, and it's a great way to have people follow the activity, but it's actually almost any social media is only successful if you're willing to invest. Social media needs to be a reflection of an active and dynamic life or an active and dynamic organization if you're going to have people constantly follow it or come to it. Now, blogging is another really important platform to look at, and it's one that many educators use. Teachers maintain many blogs. There's a lot of class blogs. Principals maintain outstanding blogs, keeps parents informed of what's happening. It actually extends, as school leaders, our ability to have people understand not just what's happening in our school, but what it is that we see in the future, what it is that we value, through what it is that we focus on when we do things like blogging. So it's a time-consuming undertaking. It's actually not time spent, though. It's time that's invested when it's done really well. So here's a school council website. And this is one that I actually credit with getting me looking at how we can work better as a system with our school councils. And we're working through that. I'll be honest and say the biggest problem is time. And I know that's the same thing you face in your life, so you can probably relate to that. This is important, but there are other things that are important, and some of them that end up being urgent, and we haven't moved this as forward as fast as we want to. However, we are moving things forward. School councils can have blogs. There's nothing that stops any school council from having a blog. You're an organization that is associated with a school, but you are actually an organization that is somewhat autonomous in terms of how it operates. So there's nothing that would stop any school council from saying, let's create a blog. But there is a change when you start saying, oh, we want our blog to be linked to the school website, and for it to be, advertised or links included in the newsletter, whether it's emailed out or printed out or it's an RSS feed, whatever. And so that's where we're actually focusing our attention, is what can we do as a system to ensure that we provide the infrastructure, or at least the opportunity. And really, when we first started this conversation, and it was really precipitated by Hull Payne, because they wanted to have their blog attached to the school website, and yet it had content that actually didn't necessarily fit alongside what the real purpose was of a school council. And this is why I want to go back to what I talked about at the beginning and why it's so important to have clarity, because your blog should reinforce with that same level of clarity what it is that the school council is all about and what its contribution is. So, this has reminders, and people can comment on things, and it's very well used. But you'll notice they have a disclaimer on it that says, this doesn't, the views or opinions expressed on this blog are not necessarily those of the Calgary Board of Education. This blog is not affiliated in any way with the CD or with the Hull Payne administration, and solely intended for the use as a tool to keep parents of children who attend Hull Payne informed and engaged, which is great. But we're wanting to take that next step, but that clarity and that working in alignment.
This is my third year as principal at Bishop Pinkham. It's actually my 30th year since I started teaching. I realized, as Brant talked about, 25 or 35 years. The days are long and the years are short, as I heard today. When I joined Bishop Pinkham in 2010, We were just in the final stages of an engagement process that saw, when it was complete, it saw us move from a school that was essentially 2 tracks, French immersion and English, grades 7 through 9, to become a 3-track school, Spanish, French immersion, and English, and grades 6 through 9. So as a new principal and a new principal to the school, there was a lot of work to be done. And I felt that much of this work needed to be done with the community. And so right from the very beginning, we started wanting to have more communication with the parents than we'd had in the school in the past. It was very important to me, especially as we moved to a middle school configuration, that the views of and the values of the parents informed the work that we were doing, and this happened from the beginning. So one of the drivers for me was to find a way of really doing 2 things. Of providing parents with some of the context of the conversations and the decisions that we were making at school. So when we make decisions about structural change, or we make decisions in the school about, we make instructional decisions, we make it within a context. And some of that context has to do with our students, who they are, their parents, all of that business. But part of the context as well are prevailing views in education. And so what we do is we do a lot of reading, and we wanted to make much of that available to the parents. What I also saw was a need to get the views from parents in as well. So what I started was this weblog, and as I say, the intention was to help build this context. It didn't work quite the way I'd wanted it to, or the way I'd expected, well, the way I wanted it to. This has been going now for over 2 years, and I have received, there's 1 comment on it, and it's from my mom. It's very positive, but just 1 comment. And we did some more work with parents, and we found that the number of page views increased, and it's increased steadily. We're now 1,100 page views a month, which I think is pretty good for a school of 494 students. So people are seeing it, and I know that people are seeing it because when parents come into the school, they talk about it. So it has evolved, but it was interesting to follow because it evolved in a way that I hadn't anticipated. It evolved as a way for the communication really to happen mainly in one direction. And so it hasn't proved to be this interactive forum. It's proved to be one way. So I thought, well, maybe Facebook. And guess what? That didn't work either. And I'll show you in a minute what we're doing with Facebook. But when we ask our parents how they want to engage with us in terms of sharing their views and their values, they want to do it individually with me, in my office, on the phone, by email, or they want to do it in a school council meeting. They don't want to do it electronically. They want to get together with people, they want to talk with me, they want to have a conversation. So that's great. I said we hired a new administrative secretary last year, and we kind of joked because we realized we were in a transition where the role of the administrative secretary had gone from protecting me from the world outside to making me available to the world outside. And so part of what we're doing with social media with our community is part of what we're doing in other ways too, and that's making sure that the principal is more available, making sure that there are more conversations that are happening, that parents are more welcome in the school. Our school council has increased. We had 19 people out last week, which was great, I think, for a middle school. I'm happy with that, and I don't think it's going to stop at 19 people. We had an invigorating discussion about field trips and about equity in field trips, and so it was wonderful. But I'd like to maybe just share a couple of things here and see where we go. So this weblog is kind of the.
Just use 2 fingers.
I was using. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I have 2 nervous fingers, so they're not working very well. Wasn't that funny? I'm just gonna.
Just do it the old-fashioned.
Yeah. All right. So what I do with the weblog, and I do this every week, it's about 3 hours a week. that it takes me. So this is Saturday morning before my wife gets up. And what we do is in the weblog, we've eliminated our traditional newsletter. So we don't email a newsletter and we don't mail one, we don't give it to kids. We put it here. And the first part is just a summary of what we've been doing and of what's coming up. And we have to be careful because this goes out to the world. So there aren't full names and there aren't, largely there aren't dates and times. But it gives parents an idea of what's going on. We have a classic joke Monday that we do on Twitter. And so at this point, I just want to talk about some of the other things that we're doing. We moved into Facebook, partly because, as I said, I was hoping that maybe that would be a way that parents would provide us with some feedback. But what that's turned out to be is, there we go, this is good. So what this has turned out to be is an opportunity for us to share some of the daily bulletins with families. We have 128 people right now, and they're almost all my mom's one of them. But other than my mom, they're all families. And you can see that actually here, while the science school was presenting, I received a text message from our outdoor education teacher who's out with 17 grade 8 students out near Bragg Creek right now. They mean to be out there. They're planning on spending the night. And so we're able to provide an update. Earlier today, I was able to provide a picture where people aren't really identifiable while they were on a break. And what we also use this for, though, is just for the daily announcements, so that parents can have a look and see what's going on in the day. One of the things that parents really like about it, and is when we do have field trips, we post pictures and we post updates. And so when I look at the activity, it's sort of stable, and then we have a field trip, and now there's this massive amount of activity, and then it comes back down. So again, what I had thought would happen is that parents, we would have parents engaging us in conversation here. They didn't, but every week we get a couple more people that join, and it seems to be serving that information need that parents have. I also run 2 Twitter accounts with the school. One of them is a daily announcement. This is easier from home, or on 3G from my office. And so we have a Bishop Pinkham BP bulletin, and you can see here that there's an update and also some. I posted that picture as well on here, and then we have our daily announcements. We've got about 90 people that follow this, 84 people that follow this. And again, this is a group of parents that's distinct from the Facebook group of parents. So what we're finding is that most of our parents aren't that engaged with Twitter, but there is a group of them who are, and they prefer to get the information this way, and so that's what we do. Perhaps more interesting, we also have another Twitter feed account here, which is the BP Principal Twitter feed, and so this is the one that I'm much more interested in, and what we do with this, or what I do with this, is as I'm reading and I'm finding things on the internet that I think will be of interest to our parent community, I post them. So the adorable puppies and Mr. Rogers are all about play and the power and the importance of play and learning. And this is something we often overlook in schools. This was just interesting, the parents' wonder bit. A couple pieces about homework though. So there was a New York Times article, I think one of these was. No, one of them was a blog. Both of them were blogs, but they're both pieces about homework. I think the bottom one here cites Alfie Cole, who's a guy that thinks we're doing too much homework in school. Earlier in the week, there was a piece that where did I put it? There's, down below here, there's a piece that Margaret Wente put in the Globe and Mail that you probably, some of you would have seen about boys and boyness. And so I also found a piece that, a newspaper article about Sweden, and there's a school that's eliminating pronouns so that everything is gender neutral. And I saw Los Lobos and Neil Young and Crazy Horse as well last week, so I couldn't resist but to put a post there. But the thing about this is, and it's followed by closer to 200 people, is this is an attempt to take that discussion to parents, and not in a way where we're necessarily talking about it, but in a way where I'm pointing them in the direction of some interesting things. And some of them I think are good ideas, and some of them I think are not so good ideas, but they're all provocative ideas, and they're all connected to the work that we're doing in schools, in making learning relevant to 2012, to the situation, to the context that our students are learning in, and to the context that we're living in. So what I do then on the weblog is I get all of the newsletter stuff out of the way at the beginning, and then I provide just a summary of what's going on with the Twitter accounts, so that if parents are not following on Twitter, they can go to the weblog and they can get not everything. There's nothing here about Los Lobos, but these are the pieces that I think are maybe the most important for parents. One of the things about blogging, about all of the social media, is it's important to be really concise. And so what I try to do is put a bit of a teaser, a bit of a context, and then a link to something that might be a video, or a link to something that might be an article, so that parents can follow it. We've been doing, and if you look at this, you'll see over the last month, we've had 2 professional development days where we've done a lot of work in bringing some creativity into our tasks that we give children. So trying to increase the thinking level of the tasks we give by having students create. And of course it's difficult to assess that, so a lot of our work is about assessment. So in the weblog over the last several months, there's been quite a bit about creativity and about the importance of creativity in learning. We have as well, between classes, we have music. We're a 3-language school. Rather than bells, we have 3 minutes of music. And every week we have a particular Spanish artist, a particular French artist, and a particular English artist. So in the weblog, I end the weblog every time with a video of each of those 3 artists. And the intent here is so that our students and their families who are in our French immersion program maybe listen to Christophe May, who's actually quite good. And so that'll kind of build on their awareness of French culture, or Spanish culture, or English culture, because we have an important English program. And then, of course, there's just a bit at the end about how people can contact me. So this is where this evolution has gone. The part in the second here with the best of what's happening in Twitter. We have one of our teachers is doing a weblog. She did an update, so the best of the teacher updates is for people that want to read a little bit more, have a little bit more time on Sunday morning. What I do with the news part of it is I cut and paste it into a template, a Word template, or a Pages template actually, and I condense it to 2 pages. And it's only the news of what's going on in the school. I turn it into a PDF and I email it to parents, along with a link to the weblog, inviting them to visit the weblog if they'd like some more details or some more information. So as I said, we typically, I think we're up to about 1,200 page views this month, but since school started, we've been over 1,200 each month. Our goal is to try to hit about 2,000, to try to get even more people engaged. Just very quickly, we also have a YouTube channel, and what I've been using this for is there are a number of things that we need to report to our families. Our accountability pillar results, for example. I don't want to use. Oh no. Am I sure? Oh, sorry, Brad.
That's okay.
I'm afraid here that I'm going to commit you to something, so I'm not going to do it. But if you follow the link from your own computer off of the weblog. On the right-hand side, there's a YouTube channel. And what we have there is a series of videos that give you some highlights of our PAT results, our accountability pillar surveys, and that kind of thing. So that information that we're obliged, our school, our annual report, there's a text format, and that resides on our school webpage. And the school webpage links to all of this. So it's links to the weblog, which links to everything else. But all of that static information and the detailed information is on the school webpage. If people want to read through the accountability pillar survey, great, that's where it is. But for many people, what they want to see are the highlights. And so we put those into a video and create a little bit of music, and we put those on the YouTube channel. So what we find is that we get more people that will take a look at the video of what our PAT results have been doing that have animated graphs than they will go in and read page after page, and yet the page after page is there. The last thing about all of this to complete the picture is that our school web page is the place where all of that persisting information resides. So that's where information about, that's where the student handbook is. That's where our calendar information is, where what's our Friday schedule, when's the next holiday, right? Friday, probably. Good chance. So we try to put that persisting information there. What parents have told us is that when they want some information about the school, they want to know that they can go to the webpage and get it. And so we're working hard to keep that up. But in terms of the news and in terms of these forums for sharing ideas with parents, social media seems to be a lot more effective. It's a lot more timely. The newsletters used to be, everything was a month out. It was either a month too soon or a month too late by the time you got the newsletter. So that's in a roundabout way about it.